My name's Harriet. I hack your AI so the bad guys can't. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today is going to be a bit of a cybersecurity 101. So we're going to be talking through key terms, definitions, some history, and some things to be conscious of when applying or transferring cybersecurity principles into the world of AI security. So I thought today was the most fitting episode to wear my DEF CON t-shirt, and you can't really see it actually, but I've got it on here. I was lucky enough to go to what is referred to as Hacker Summer Camp. It is the trifecta of hacking conferences held every year in Las Vegas in August, so very, very hot. I went to BSides Las Vegas, Black Hat USA, and then DEF CON, and it was amazing. I had a great time. And for the first time, I was really starting to hear a lot more dialogue around applying cybersecurity into AI security. However, I did notice that there was still a strong divide between the cybersecurity and the AI communities. I thought it was really interesting that many of the AI people I spoke with, they attended just the AI village, and there were some really great security conversations happening there, but the focus was still mostly on AI for cybersecurity or AI safety, and not necessarily AI security. And I spoke to a lot of AI people who said that they didn't really feel confident enough to go to many of the other villages or talks because a lot of the cybersecurity and information security talks just went way over their heads. Man, I've been there. A lot of it still goes over my head, but I've been able to get to grips since I've been working in the field for a few years, and I can so relate to that. I was always an AI person first. Translating AI into cybersecurity is very difficult. They're totally different fields, both technical but in very different ways. And while most cybersecurity professionals I know have dabbled in AI or are kind of interested in it, there's actually a lot more statistics and mathematics that goes into machine learning than people often realize, and it's important to know when it comes to making models great and not just good, and also to defending those models. So the intention of this episode is to provide a bit of an introduction primarily aimed at data scientists, but ideally it might be for anyone who's interested. So let's start off with some really key definitions, and that is, what is cybersecurity and is it different to information security? And the thing is, yes, they are totally different, but they're often used interchangeably, or at least the way that they're used, it's not necessarily clear whether they're referring to specific things or not, but they are different. Cybersecurity is the practice of protecting computer systems and networks from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction. Information security is the practice of protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. In other words, cybersecurity is focused on protecting the physical systems that store and process information, while information security is focused on protecting the information itself. Another term we often hear is hacking, and hacking is the act of gaining unauthorized access to a computer system or network. However, the term hacker has also sort of evolved to mean something a bit more general, and hacker culture is a real thing. The idea of pulling apart a problem and trying to find a way to disrupt it so that you can make it better is actually really great. The term hacker these days often just refers to someone who doesn't really fit a stereotype or is a little bit outside the box, and that's also why I decided to call my channel Harriet Hack. So let's talk about the history of cybersecurity. The internet was born out of a DARPA project. So the United States government created the internet to be able to communicate across borders, and then from there, the early adopters were often academic and research communities. By the 1970s, the internet was accessible to more people, and people were starting to connect different applications or tools to the internet. And back then, security was an afterthought, if anything. Phreaking is a term that's often associated with these times. So being able to gain unauthorized access was pretty easy because there weren't really many security controls at all, and the idea of security was defense through obscurity, which is absolutely ridiculous now. It would not fly these days, but at the time was actually basically a way of saying that if the system was pretty complicated, then the chances that someone would find their way in were low. That is not true now. So one of the earliest instances of a widespread cyber attack was the Morris worm. It was released in 1988, and it was a self-replicating computer worm written by Robert Tappan Morrow, a graduate student at Cornell University, and it spread really quickly and infected about 6,000 computers. In the 1990s and early 2000s, the focus shifted towards developing encryption techniques, firewalls, and intrusion detection systems to counter emerging and high-profile threats. The I Love You worm was a computer worm that infected over 10 million Windows personal computers on and after the 5th of May 2000. It started spreading as an email message with the subject loveletterforyou.txt.vbs, so it led unwitting users to think it was a normal text file and open it, letting it propagate. Code Red and Nimda were two of the most destructive computer worms in history. Code Red was first observed on the 15th of July 2001. Once infected, Code Red would deface the victim's website with a message that read, "Hacked by Chinese." It could also be used to launch denial of service attacks. Nimda was first observed on September 18th, 2001. It was even more destructive than Code Red, and it spread even faster. It could also spread through email attachments, file shares, and even instant messaging. You may notice a commonality here: Microsoft. Microsoft computers were by far the most widely used, and so therefore fertile ground for hackers. They were therefore also one of the first major technology companies to adopt a secure by design approach, implementing a number of policies and procedures to improve the security of its products. These included things like security reviews, requiring all new software to undergo a security review before it was released, vulnerability disclosure, allowing security researchers to report vulnerabilities in Microsoft products, which they would then work to fix as quickly as possible, and security training for employees. There were of course other companies and thought leaders who were instrumental in the development of secure by design thinking. These days there are many new security trends, so AI, data breaches, the rise of the dark web, cryptocurrencies, quantum computing, and the cloud that are impacting the cybersecurity environment, and so it's an ongoing challenge. So why is security even a thing? Well, it takes a lot of code to write a computer program, many millions of lines usually. Code, especially software code, requires you to be very explicit about what you want the computer to do. This means that it's inevitable that sometimes there'll be some sort of bug in the code that exposes some aspect of the program or system to something it wasn't intended. This is known as a vulnerability. However, just because a vulnerability exists doesn't necessarily mean that it would be discovered or used. If it is, however, we refer to it as an exploit. In cybersecurity, a 0 day is an exploit that has never been used before, i.e. the first day it's used is day 0. The market for 0 days is massive. You'd be shocked. 0 day exploits can cost millions of dollars to those who might want to buy them, which might be criminals looking to exploit them or governments to prevent criminals from using them. And this might sound like a lot of money, but the potential income in a system can lead to much more value: money, information, and reputation. Therefore, when software makers identify vulnerabilities in systems, they want to patch those systems and they want to patch them fast. These are often in software updates and patches that you might install on your computer. So you should definitely install all of those patches and in fact turn on automatic updates. However, ideally the vulnerability actually never existed in the first place. This is the nature of cyber and information security: the practice of identifying and patching vulnerabilities, with the caveat that secure software design principles should prevent as many software vulnerabilities in the first place. Just as vulnerabilities and exploits exist in traditional computer systems, they can also exist in AI systems, and this is my trade. An analogy often used in cybersecurity is that of a house. So if you're looking to secure a house, you might start by analyzing how many windows and doors it has. These are all access vectors and contribute to the attack surface. To secure these, you would do things like put locks on the doors and windows and hide the keys in very secure places. If you really care about your house's security, you could go so far as to build an impenetrable wall around the house, or even hire a mover to relocate your house to the moon. However, a house is also for living in, and you need to make a compromise between how efficiently you can get in your house and how much you want to keep your nosy neighbors out. Such is the balance in software security as well. Now let's go through some common cyber attack types. First, we have a data breach. Now, a data breach is an incident in which sensitive, confidential, or otherwise protected data is exposed to an unauthorized individual or entity. This can happen through a variety of ways, such as hacking, phishing, or social engineering. In Australia, the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, the OAIC, is responsible for managing data breaches. In the United States, it's the Federal Trade Commission, and in the European Union, it's regulated by GDPR. Now, a DDoS is a distributed denial of service attack. A DDoS attack is an attempt to make a website or service unavailable to its intended users by overwhelming it with traffic from multiple sources. This can be done by using a botnet, which is a network of infected computers that are controlled by the attacker. You could technically also have a DOS, or denial of service attack, but these days they do tend to be distributed because of these botnets. Malware. Malware is software that is designed to harm a computer system or network. It can take many forms, such as viruses, worms, Trojan horses, and ransomware. A virus is a type of malware that can replicate itself and spread from one computer to another. Viruses can be spread through email attachments, infected websites, or removable media such as USB drives. A worm is a type of malware that can replicate itself and spread from one computer to another, but it does not need a host file to do so. BEC, or business email compromise, is a type of fraud in which criminals impersonate a legitimate business in order to trick the victim into making a payment. BEC scams often involve sending emails that appear to be from a senior executive to a company, requesting a wire transfer or other financial transactions. AI technologies like video and audio deepfakes are making these kinds of scams, among others, a lot harder to detect. Ransomware is a type of malware that encrypts the victim's files and demands a ransom payment in order to decrypt them. Ransomware attacks can be very costly, both in terms of the ransom payment and the damage to the victim's data. You might not hear about these much in the media, but they're a lot more common than you think. Most companies who are subject to one and pay the ransom are often quite embarrassed that they did that. I mean, most places technically have a zero ransom payment policy, but in practice, that's often really difficult for a company to stomach when they're putting their customers and potentially other businesses at risk of losing a lot of money and sales because they're down. And the criminals who conduct this kind of extortion can also be pretty brutal. They can threaten violence as well, so it is pretty scary. Now, security by design. Security by design is an approach that incorporates security principles into the design of systems and products from the outset. It's based on the principle that it's much easier and more effective to design security into a system than to try and retrofit it later. There are a lot of different security principles that can be applied to security by design, including the principle of least privilege, which emphasizes restricting users' access rights to the minimum necessary for their specific roles. It reduces the potential impact of unauthorized actions and limits the damage caused by security breaches. There is also defense in depth, and this involves layering multiple security measures throughout an organization's infrastructure to provide overlapping protection. A good analogy here is a piece of cheese. The kind of cheese that has holes in it. What's that called again? Is that Jarlsberg? So if you slice up this cheese, you'll notice that each slice probably has a hole, but the entire block of cheese has no one tunnel where you can drill from one end to the other. Applying different security controls is like layering up slices of cheese so that none of the holes match up and there is no way to get from one side to the other. This approach reduces the likelihood of a single point of failure, compromising the entire system's security. Zero trust is very popular at the moment. I hear it at all the cyber conferences. It basically challenges traditional approaches by assuming that threats exist within the network and emphasizing the need for continuous verification and very strict access controls regardless of location. Patching and vulnerability management is all about underscoring the importance of keeping software and systems up to date to address known vulnerabilities and reduce the risk of exploitation by attackers. You'd be shocked to know how many attacks occur because companies haven't updated their software or installed patches to known vulnerabilities. This can often be up to many years after the potential exploit was known, but if a company doesn't have a good process to install updates and patches, then some of these systems can go unprotected for a long time. Fail-safe defaults ensure that systems are configured in a secure state by default. Continuous monitoring. This principle involves continuously monitoring systems for security threats and vulnerabilities. It helps to identify and mitigate threats very early on. Now, what about information security? I don't want to dump too many terms on you. The thing that's important to note in information security is the CIA triad, and no, not that CIA. Here, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality is all about ensuring that sensitive information is accessible only to authorized individuals or entities. Integrity focuses on maintaining the accuracy and reliability of data. Availability ensures that authorized users have access to information and systems when needed. affected. A good case study for all of these is the Sony attack.
So the Sony hack occurred in late 2014, and it serves as a stark example of a major cybersecurity breach and its implications for the information security triad. In this high-profile incident, hackers, allegedly linked to North Korea, infiltrated Sony Pictures Entertainment's network, stealing sensitive data, employee information, and unreleased films.
So perhaps more importantly, at least in my opinion, is that cybersecurity and information security has a massive ecosystem. The cyber and information security ecosystem is a comprehensive framework that encompasses technical innovation, governance structures, policies, human expertise, and legal considerations. This is something that AI security absolutely does not have yet. So the technical part of the ecosystem involves leveraging advanced technologies, tools, and solutions to secure digital assets. Effective cybersecurity governance establishes roles, responsibilities, and management protocols, and incident response plans. Governance ensures a coordinated approach to cybersecurity and aligns security efforts with business objectives. Policies provide guidelines and rules for secure practices and compliance. Well-defined policies promote consistent security practices, reducing vulnerabilities arising from ad hoc decisions. Legal frameworks and regulations establish the boundaries and responsibilities of organizations in maintaining cybersecurity. Compliance with regulations such as GDPR, HIPAA, and others ensures that organizations prioritize data protection and privacy. Organizations can even buy cyber insurance. So what does this mean for AI security? Well, these are all principles that can be applied to AI security. In fact, some standards organizations are starting to recommend ways that we can do just that, and this is something that my business does too. However, there are some key differences that need to be considered from a security perspective. First of all, a lot of existing cybersecurity mitigations, as we've discussed a lot already, don't necessarily cover AI security because they're entirely different attack surfaces. So therefore, for these AI security considerations, there are lots of ways that we can transfer existing cybersecurity methodologies, but they need to be adapted. And some of these key differences are the fact that cybersecurity systems are designed to protect against known threats, while AI systems are constantly learning and evolving. Cybersecurity systems are often typically rule-based, while AI systems are probabilistic. And actually, cryptography is a field that could lend really well here because that kind of information is probabilistic as well, actually. Also, cybersecurity principles are typically reactive, while AI systems can be proactive. And this means we need to consider things like data security. The data must be protected from unauthorized access, modification, or destruction, but in slightly different ways to the ways that we think about data for cybersecurity. Model security. AI models are often proprietary and valuable assets, so they must be protected from theft, reverse engineering, and tampering. And the ways that people steal models are very different to the ways that people steal information in traditional cyber systems. Model selection. The choice of model will impact which vulnerabilities are present and how they can be exploited. Inference security. AI systems can be used to make inferences about individuals or groups, and these inferences must be protected from unauthorized disclosure. Human AI teams. Humans interact with AI in a totally different way to computer systems, especially when it comes to trust and the personification of human-like AI systems. Human psychology is a really crucial consideration. And then real-world interaction. AI systems may be able to make or contribute to decisions that have real-world consequences, so there must be enough context in the system to enable good predictions. This is an area I would love to see more active development, and I highly encourage any viewers to be creative and learn more about how cybersecurity could be applied to AI security. So some great cybersecurity references and resources are the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, which has TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures in cybersecurity. There's also OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project, a non-profit organization that works to improve the security of software. I also highly recommend you listen to Darknet Diaries by Jake Resida. It's a lot of really cool stories about crazy things that happen in the internet in the world of hacking, and it's really blown my mind, the lengths that some people will go to do things. So I still haven't really reached the tip of the iceberg when it comes to cybersecurity, and it makes me really want to do another blog, possibly another series. For example, physical penetration testing and social engineering are fascinating rabbit holes to go down and could both have their place in the AI security world. I really highly encourage you to develop your hacking skills, but of course only as a white hat hacker. hacker. So in the next episode, we're going to be diving into AI governance, and I promise you it's not as boring as it sounds. Another thing to note about hacking, a lot of the conferences are referred to as hacking conferences, and hackers have always had their place in the cyber and information security world. They've traditionally had sort of like negative connotations, like governments really haven't liked hackers, but they've been so integral to the community, and many bad hackers often go on to work for the government and to be like very helpful. And as an AI person who got into security later, I've always felt a little bit of an outsider, and actually in all of my previous roles I felt like an outsider for all sorts of different reasons, but the hacker community has been so welcoming and lovely, and I love to say that I'm part of it. I still don't feel like a true part of it, but if any of you viewers haven't been to any hacking conferences before, I highly recommend you go. DEF CON is the big one obviously, but there are local BSides conferences that are just fantastic and exceptional, and I would argue that I actually preferred BSides Las Vegas to DEF CON this year. The crowds at DEF CON were insane and I really struggled with that, and BSides just had a lovely community feel to it that was great. So I'm really interested to know if anyone here has been to many of these conferences, so please comment below if you've been to either DEF CON or BSides before and which one you preferred. Okay, we're now going to end on the AI joke of the week, and this one, I don't know if this is a great one either. Okay, what language does a robot use when they're constantly apologizing? Remorse code. So many regrets. So many regrets. I think they're just getting worse. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.